I didn't build as many parks in 2023 as I did in 2022, but maybe I did build better parks. And to wrap up the year, I do have 10 Jurassic World Evolution 2 builds to show you, from my least favorite to what I think is my best park, not just of the year, but ever. And I hope that these parks will inspire you for your own builds in 2024. All of the parks that you're going to see in this video and on the channel are still completely unmodded, which hopefully shows you that you can do awesome things in Jurassic World Evolution 2 without needing mods. The number 10 on the list is the smallest build on the list, which is why it is in last place. It is the Predator Park, having only 4 species, the species from the most recent DLC. While it is a small build and had to be defaulted to the number 10 spot because of it, which I think is only fair, I actually think it's a really good looking park and a reminder that you don't have to push yourself to cover a full square map. A small quick build can be a lot of fun to do, and you don't have to worry about losing steam before you completed the build. If you're struggling to remain motivated throughout a long build, which is a recurring comment that I see on the channel, perhaps you should try a mini park build like this. Number 9 is the River Cruise Park, which uses the monorail glitch that was discovered this year. I've done a tutorial on how you can get the monorail tracks at ground level and into the lagoons, which you can check out on the channel for your own builds. The park is mostly open nature split into habitats by invisible fencing, with the twin river cruises connecting guest hubs on 2 far ends of the map. If you haven't tried the monorail glitch yet, I highly recommend it, as it might be the only way we are ever going to get a kind of sort of river cruise into our parks without modding. But I am still keeping my fingers crossed for some good additions coming to Jurassic World Evolution 2 in 2024. Until then, this is just a really fun glitch to play around with, and it leads to a very different kind of park build. The number 8 spot is for the Worldwide Wildlife Park, which is the world map in miniature form, with the dinosaurs living on the continents where their dig sites are located in-game. This park was probably the biggest struggle for me to complete this year, because I did get quite frustrated with the limited terrain tools, and especially how big even the smallest brush size is when it comes to the water tool. In the end, I do think my pain and suffering was worth it, because I'm really happy with how it turned out. The tour for this park is coming to the channel shortly. I only finished this build last week, so subscribe to the channel if you want to see the tour. For the other parks on this list, you can check out their full tours in the playlist linked at the end of this video. Number 7 is a park build more reminiscent of what I used to do in Jurassic World Evolution 1, getting back into a little bit of path art. Officially, I've called this, appropriately, my path art park, but the tour for this build is actually called Goat Park, because instead of putting dinosaurs in the enclosures, I only put in goats. Because who wouldn't pay thousands of dollars to travel to a remote island to look upon dozens and dozens of identical goats? The gimmick of the park aside, this park is actually a really good default layout if that's something you're struggling with. A number of interconnected circular plazas with habitats surrounding them. Number 6, just missing out on the top half of the list, is Feather Park. At the time of building this park, shortly after the Feathered Species DLC dropped, this park had all feathered species in the game. We now have some new additions, so maybe 2024 should also be the year for a new feathered species park. This park combines a lot of elements that are my go-tos when it comes to building parks. It's an interesting island shape, wasting quite a bit of space to make that shape, some bits of path art, or at least path flair as I like to call it, mixing up the colors, using the monorail tracks decoratively, placing decorations until the FPS drops become insufferable, and avoiding a flat park at all costs. If you apply these things to your own builds, especially playing with elevation, I think you'll see how easy it is to make a park build look just a little bit more impressive. Now we're going to move into the top 5, my favorite and, in my opinion, my best builds of 2023. With, in 5th place, a park I had to race to complete, Christmas Mountain Park. The reason I had to complete this park is because if not, I wouldn't have 10 parks to show in this video. These are all 10 full parks that I managed to complete this year. And the number 1 spot on the list is the main reason why I didn't have time to finish more. There's 3 other park builds going on the channel that I've been working on this year that are not yet finished. the Jurassic Park only park, using the restriction of only Jurassic Park buildings and decorations, the new Lagoon Park, Ocean Kingdom, which still requires a lot of work, and Mini Manticore Island, which is the current weekly building series. I will be completing these parks next year, so maybe they'll make it onto the list of the 10 best builds of 2024. But for this year, I had to finish the Christmas Mountain Park to get to a list of 10. Thankfully, I think it turned out to be a really cool park build. The entire park is built on a massive mountain. And yes, much to the surprise of many people in the livestream chats when we first started this build in early December, this is completely unmodded. You can make a mountain like this with the base game, it just takes patience to build it up. While building my mountain, I created some plateaus for guest areas and dinosaur exhibits, and all plateaus are connected either through Hyperloop, monorail, or long paths going around the mountainside. What made this park build extra special is that all dinosaurs in the park were chosen by a random picker wheel, so we had no idea which species we'd end up with, which I highly recommend you try out. I've linked the wheel down below. It was made by someone on the subreddit, and it was so much fun to build a park this way. But also the mountain build itself was really fun and challenging, and definitely something I want to revisit in one of the other biomes. So you'll see another mountain park on the channel in the future for sure. The tour for this build is coming next week, so stay tuned for that. The number 4 spot is for my real Jurassic Park build. This park has all Jurassic species in the game, which, surprisingly, considering the name of the game, aren't that many. And it's another rather mountainous build. Something I also noticed while making this list is that a lot of my park builds this year just include a lot of nature. Like this park, which only has a few small guest areas, and the rest is just nature separated into habitats, with long tours driving through to honor the kind of flawed main attraction of the actual Jurassic Park. I've done this full build as a speed build that you can check out on the channel if you haven't already, as well as the full tour, which is one of my longest tours ever done as we drive through the entire park. Aside from the fact that I don't think the game has enough Jurassic species currently, something I hope we'll still see amended in 2024, I really like this build, just not as much as the top 3 for 2023. In third place is Nursery Park. This uses my idea for having some species and variants as substitute babies for others, as well as sexual dimorphism for every single habitat. So every habitat has species that are supposed to be the adult males and females and their offspring, either as babies or juveniles. I've done a video on these ideas that you can check out on the channel. I think it's a really fun way to use the species to a different effect for once, and I firmly believe that using our imagination this way is the only way we're getting baby dinosaurs in our parks without modding. Nursery Park also has a dark secret in the form of a secret facility at its core where they are breeding Indominus Rexes to sell to the highest bidders. And the rest of the park is really just a front for this illegal operation. And that's something I like doing while I build, coming up with stories behind the park. And in most cases, it's really just a way to keep myself sane while placing thousands of planters. But sometimes, like with this park, it actually leads to a more interesting build. Like, it informs a whole new aspect of the build. But mostly what I like about this park, aside from the concept, are the guest areas and the way the path flows from the entry section. I think it's a really good looking park, even though, as for nearly all of my parks, the building process is very unplanned and spontaneous, as most of it is done during live streams. I'm not the type of person to plan out full park builds ahead of time. Maybe I should. It is something I do on exhibit level, and I've done tip videos for that. But when it comes to a full park, I just start somewhere and I let it flow, and I think that worked out really well for this build. In second place is, ironically, the park I call my favorites park. Not because it's my favorite park, clearly, although it did score high, but because this park is populated by, at the time, my favorite species in the game, as well as some favorites decided on by livestream chat polls while we were building, again during livestreams. I build almost all of my parks either in the weekly Saturday livestreams or weekly episodes of a park building series. If you want to join for these builds for inspiration and tips for your own parks, consider subscribing to the channel. Favorite parks is again full of my park building staples, like playing with terrain elevation, mixing up the path colors, using the monorail tracks, not just for transport, and a lot of attention to detail with the decorations. One of my favorite things about the park is the visitor center placed up on a hill, so that when you're standing in front of the T-Rex habitat, you can look up at the Brachiosaurus habitat on a higher level and the visitor center above that. While building parks, as often as I can, I think about sightlines and creating impressive views for the guests beyond just showing them awesome dinosaurs, and I think these tiers in the elevation is a good example of that. Finally, the number one park, a surprise to none, Mini Nublar. Mini Nublar is my favorite park that I've built so far, not just this year, but for as long as I've been playing Jurassic World Evolution. I had a lot of fun building this park in weekly episodes over the course of 18 weeks. And this park is the main reason why I struggled to complete 10 full builds this year, because this one build took so long. But really, that is a trend for most of my builds this year. In 2022, we might spend something like 4 live streams building a full park, and then it was ready for a tour and we moved on to the next build. This year, looking at, for example, the Jurassic Park only build, we've already done 12 live streams for that park of 2 hours each, and the park still isn't finished yet. And that's a testament of Frontier having given us more tools, more decorations specifically to build better parks, in combination with my determination to make a park build as detailed as possible, to the detriment of my frame rate. So even though I've built fewer parks this year, I do think I built better parks, with Mini Nublar at the very top. And I think it will excite many to know that once we are done with Mini Manticore Island, we will of course be jumping right into the next big building series on the channel, Mini Sorna, coming in 2024. This video is just meant as a wrap up of my biggest projects of the year. I am not claiming that my parks are the best out of any park that anybody builds. It's just an overview of my own builds, which I hope give you some ideas for your parks going into the new year. Speaking of the new year, I am very much looking forward to January, when I will be showcasing the best community builds sent in for Battle of the Builders. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.